Hey folks, welcome back to the You Want Pizzazz channel. I've got 5 awesome text tutorials for you to learn in After Effects. Now I don't want to waste your time, so make sure to skip to the time codes in the description below. You will be learning how to create this trendy, aesthetic, wavy text in After Effects. It's really simple to do. Let's get started. I have my text on top of my ocean video. This is what it looks like right now. I'm going to go into Effects and Presets, and we're going to search for a wave warp. And go ahead and drag it onto your text layer. Now let's adjust the settings a little bit. Make sure your wave type is set to sine. We want to change the height to 3. We want to change the width to 108. Keep the direction at 90 degrees. And we're going to change the wave speed to 0.5. And that's it, folks. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. We're going to start off by creating a composition. I'm going to make it 1920 by 1080. And yes, 30 frames per second is fine. Press OK. Now we're going to go ahead and click our text tool and click on the screen. I'm just going to type sliced. In the characters panel, you can adjust the font, the color, whatever you need to do over here. Go ahead and do it. I'm just going to go ahead and align my text here. Okay, great. So now we're going to duplicate this layer 3 times. And I'm going to do that by selecting the layer and hitting Command C, Command V, Command V. So now there is 3 layers. I'm going to name the first one Text Top. I'm going to name the second one Text Bottom. And I'm going to name the third one Text OG. Now I'm going to go ahead and hide these bottom 2 layers and make sure the text top layer is selected. Now let's go over to our rectangle tool. If you hold it down, you'll see a couple different options here. Just make sure the rectangle tool is selected here. And now I'm going to click and drag until we're about halfway across the text here. That's fine. You'll see that it has created a mask, and we're going to actually select this mask and hit Command C, and then we're going to click the text bottom layer and hit Command V to paste that same mask onto the bottom layer. Go ahead and hide that top layer and unhide the bottom layer. So you'll see that we pasted that exact mask onto the bottom layer, but we're going to actually invert it so it does a perfect slice across the middle. So you'll see the top layer and the bottom layer looks great. Just going to close up these arrows here, and now I'm going to select these 2 layers here and just drag it. Leave the text OG the way it is. You don't have to worry about that for now. And now with the 2 layers still selected, hit P on your keyboard to activate the position keyframes. We're going to hit that stopwatch here. Go ahead and click that box underneath the cube icon. And you'll see that it activates a few more options here, and we're going to mark a keyframe for the Y rotation. And again, both layers are selected, so keyframes are being added to both layers. Drag the playhead across to about 5. You can click outside to deselect the layers. And I'm just going to arrange the slice how I want it to look. So I'm just going to move this top one over a bit and a little bit up. I'm going to move this bottom one to the left a bit. So that's what it looks like so far. If you want to leave it like that, you can. But I'm also going to play around with the rotation. I'm going to make the text top at +1, and I'm going to make the text bottom at -1. Just to add a bit of a 3D element to it. So you can see if we start here, it has a neat little slice effect. So that is looking cool already. So now, why don't we unhide that bottom layer? We're going to select it and just make a cut here, and you can do that by hitting Command-Shift-D and just deleting this second layer here. This is optional, of course, but I'm just going to add a nice little fade in at the top here. So I'm going to hit T on my keyboard, mark a keyframe at the beginning, mark a keyframe at the end here, and then change that beginning keyframe to 0. As you see here, I have already created a composition with a text that says wiggle text on top. So go ahead and create that text layer. Once you've done that, we're going to create a new solid in the composition. So right click in the composition, click new, solid. Just leave it as a black color, it doesn't really matter, and I'm gonna call this fractal noise. In effects and presets, I want you to search for fractal noise. Here it is. Go ahead and drag that onto the black solid. We're gonna adjust some settings here in the effect controls. Open up evolution. Hover your mouse over the random seed stopwatch and you want to hold down option and click the stopwatch. You can see an expression shows up here in the composition here. We want to delete this expression and we want to change it to time star 8. And just click out of here to save the expression. Great, now that that's done, we are going to pre-compose this fractal noise layer, and we can do that by right-clicking and clicking pre-compose. Make sure it's set to move all attributes into the new composition and press OK. Now you can go ahead and hide that fractal noise comp. Make sure your wiggle text layer is selected, and we're going to search for a new effect called displacement map. Go ahead and drag the displacement map onto the wiggle text. And the last step is to set the source to fractal noise comp. Go ahead and hit play. And there you have it, folks, a simple wiggle text effect. As you can see, I have already created a 1920 by 1080 comp. I made the background a nice green. And we're gonna start off by adding text to the screen. So I'm gonna click the horizontal type tool. I'm gonna click on the screen. Howdy. And you can adjust the font, the size, and the spacing here, but I'm happy with how it looks right now, so I'm just going to go to align, and I'm going to align that in the center of the screen. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this anchor point to here. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to click this button here, the pan behind anchor point tool, and I'm going to just manually move this to right here, and I'm going to try to get it as centered as possible. We are going to toggle on the 3D animation part of this layer and the motion blur. Now if we open up the text layer and we go into transform, you'll see that there's 3 new options here: X, Y, and Z rotation. So the one we're going to be playing with is the X rotation. And the first thing we're going to do is just set our end keyframe, because this is how the animation is going to end. So I'm just going to hit the X keyframe here, and I'm going to move this down a bit. I'm going to make another keyframe, and we're going to move this to about 90. Now we're going to go to the end here, and we're going to add another keyframe right here next to the last keyframe, and we're going to make this about -30. Now I'm going to highlight the keyframes. I'm going to right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease. So now we're going to play it, let it render. Now let's see how this looks. Alright, that looks pretty good. You can adjust the keyframes, you can move these farther apart if you want it to be slower, or closer together if you want it to be faster. I'm happy with this speed, so I'm just going to leave it as is. Now the last touch I'm going to add is get rid of this little line here. So I'm going to select the text layer and I'm going to hit T on my keyboard for opacity. We're going to mark 2 keyframes, one at the beginning and one a little closer down the line here. We're going to go back to the first keyframe and we're going to set it to 0. And again, you can select the keyframes, F9 for easy ease. If you want to see all the keyframes that you're working with here, select the layer and hit U on your keyboard. So this is everything. Now I'm going to let it render and then give it a play. We're going to start off by creating a new comp. We're going to make the dimensions 1920 by 1080. You can change this depending on your project. We'll keep the frame rate at 30 frames per second, and I'm going to change the duration to 5 seconds. Once you're done that, press OK. We're going to start off by creating a white background. I'm going to just right click here, press New, and then create a new solid. We're gonna leave it as white, and I'm just gonna rename it as background. Press OK. Now we're gonna click the text tool up here, and we're gonna click on the screen. I'm gonna type Typewriter effect. So I'm going to highlight this. We're gonna make it a black. Press OK. And I'm gonna search for the typewriter font. American Typewriter. We're gonna go with regular. Let's go ahead and increase the scale. And we're going to go under the Align tab, and we're going to align it on the screen so it is perfectly centered. I'm just gonna change the resolution to full so you can see it in all of its glory. Now let's go ahead and add the effect. So under the text layer, you can click the arrow here, and we're gonna click Animate, Character Offset. Beside the Animator 1 tab, we're gonna hit Add, Property, Opacity. We're gonna change the opacity to 0, and then we're gonna open up Range Selector 1. We're gonna make keyframes for the Start tab for 0 and 100. So let's start at 0. Move this all the way across to about here. I'm gonna change this to 100. So now you have 2 keyframes, one at 0 and one at 100. Under the Advanced tab, we're gonna open that up. We're gonna change the smoothness to 0. Perfect. Now go ahead and close those up. Now let's see how it looks. So that looks great. Now let's take a look at these keyframes again. We're gonna hit U on the keyboard to look at them. And I'm just gonna push it in a little closer so it's a little faster. Great. And if you wanna leave it there, that's fine. But what I'm gonna do is add a little sound effect to this typewriter effect to make it seem a little more realistic. Make sure to download the sound effect in the description below. I have it right here, and I'm just gonna drag it on to the comp here. Now let's take a listen. I'm just gonna end it right at that last letter here, and I'm gonna make a cut by hitting Command-Shift-D. And I'm gonna delete this. Drag it to a place you're happy with it. Alright, I'm happy with that. And that's it, folks. I hope you learned something new today, and if you did, please give this video a like and comment down below what you would like to see next. If you like Premiere Pro, After Effects, or Photoshop tutorials, make sure to hit that subscribe button because there's a lot more videos coming. Have a fantastic day, folks. Bye!